Hello everyone, and welcome to the Narcissistic Abuse Recovery Care Network. This is episode 2, Understanding the Narcissist's Mind. So in this episode we're going to discuss how the narcissist thinks and some of the particular criteria that goes on in their mind for their day-to-day functioning. And we should first approach the subject here that with most of us in our lives, at some time or another, we have to behave in some narcissistic way. In other words, we have to put ourselves first for some reason or another because we have things to do, or we just want to focus on ourselves because of something that compels us to do so. Now, that particular type of narcissism is completely different from clinical narcissism. A clinical narcissist is a person who has a bunch of elements within them that have defined and made them into a narcissistic individual. So a narcissist who is clinically diagnosed as such, and some are never clinically diagnosed with this, many aren't, they have a specific group of elements that has made them a narcissist. So some of these elements are as follows. A clinical narcissist generally has a parent that has some pre-existing specific things in their DNA that they've passed on to the child that are of a narcissistic hereditary nature. Like this. To make a narcissist, you need these particular genetic markers in there. If a parent is a narcissist, generally they will pass this on to their child, and the genetic marker for that child to be a narcissist is then automatically there. Now, one of the other key things that you need to make an actual clinical narcissist is that particular person, or child more specifically, has to have endured some type of abuse before the age of 9 or 10. Before the age of 9 or 10, the brain is forming in certain ways, and it's that period of time when they're subject to abuse that the brain forms different connections within it in such a case that the brain of the child no longer functions the way a normal brain works in an average normal person. In other words, you're completely rewiring the child's synaptic network in the brain so that it no longer functions normally anymore. And what happens when this goes on is that when the child receives abuse of an emotional or a sexual nature or both, or any type of abuse, it can be negative reinforcement abuse emotionally. It can be too much positive reinforcement abuse is even capable of doing this. If you actually affect the child where you're constantly praising them and they're not given any criticism at any particular time, a child can also develop a narcissistic tendency in this way just from having too much positive reinforcement. So it's really important to really balance the emotional attention that you give to a child, because this can also contribute to this in this way. But as a whole, when a child receives, under the age of 9 or 10, in those formative years, abuse of some emotional or physical nature, it rewires their brain. And how it rewires their brain is that once they've been subjected to this, their brain kind of goes into, not necessarily a fight or flight mode, but it goes into a protection mode. So things that are affecting it in negative ways, the brain no longer stores. So the brain doesn't store dangerous memories or memories that it sees as being just non-conducive to its functioning in a day-to-day manner. So the child forms this type of brain younger, and as they become older and into adolescence, things that threaten them in some particular way, they no longer store in their memory the same way a normal person does. And how this affects a narcissist is that when you're dealing with them like this, They can be talking to you and having a conversation with you and saying this and saying that and making a promise to you or telling you they're going to do something of this nature, like this, and they will never remember that they said this to you. And this is not because they're electively choosing not to remember this memory. It's because this memory, when it happened at the time that it was happening, was never stored in their brain normally in the first place. And I'll give you a quick example of this. It comes from one of my narcissistic experiences, my most recent narcissistic experience. When I consulted some of the other victims of my narcissist who were being subject to the same behavior that I was, I compared some notes from one particular male who was also involved with my narcissist at the same time as me. Now, we compared notes, and we know, myself and this other male, that we were in a physical relationship with this narcissist at exactly the same time. We were having a relationship, both of us simultaneously, with her that was also of a sexual nature. And we compared timelines, both of us, so we know we were both with her at the same time. She has no memory of this. In fact, in a messenger message that she sent me after I actually called her out, she said to me, "I was never with you at the same time as I was with this other person." This is because she does not remember this. Her brain has compartmentalized in a way that when this memory was occurring, it never went into her brain. She's not acting like she doesn't remember this. She really doesn't remember this at all. So to her, she never did this at the same time. So for her, she was never seeing me and seeing this other male at the same time, and this was never going on at the same time, because her brain has never stored a memory of this happening, even though I can present evidence from myself and from that other male that says that we were involved with her simultaneously at the same time. So, the way the narcissist brain works is that even when they're saying things to you or you're saying things to them, they're not storing these memories like a normal person. Their brain no longer works and stores memory like a normal person does, like this. And this is due to the trauma that they've had when they were younger. Now, when you get a narcissist that is like this, that's mid-level or higher or ultra-level and stuff, some of the ultra-level or greater-level narcissists will be aware of possibly of these memories, because they store these memories and are able to access them in different ways. But a lot of narcissists, their brain is just completely changed forever, and they will never remember this, no matter what you do, because they really have no memory of it. They have no memory of this. They have no memory of the good. They have no memory of the bad. They're just not storing these memories that you have with them like a normal person like you or I would. So to them, the things that went on, they never happened. They really never happened in their minds. It's not a choice. And they do this as a self-protection mechanism in their minds in order to be able to get away with the narcissistic behavior that they do. But it's automatic. It's not a conscious choice for them to do this. It just happens. So one of the things that they also do a lot often, and you'll see this with most narcissists on many levels, but especially the greater or ultra levels, they don't the greater or ultra levels don't defend themselves exactly the same way. They usually just, if they're approached with a topic that they find they don't want to deal with, they will usually just deflect the topic and it goes somewhere else and becomes a complete other subject with them. But most narcissists use a thing called alloplastic defense. And alloplastic defense is just to say that when you approach them and you talk to them about something that goes on, like this, that you may be upset with, because you're pointing a finger at them saying, hey, you know, you're guilty of doing this or whatever, and I caught you saying this, and whatever went on, they will never accept that they have any responsibility. They will sometimes say, well, like, you're responsible for this, but I might be responsible for this, but I really think that this is really your fault because this occurred for whatever reason, blah, 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 and such on. And most narcissists use this alloplastic defense in this way because it allows them to assume absolutely no responsibility for their actions. So when they use this alloplastic defense, again, it's almost a subconscious thing that they're using because it enables to get them to get away with just about anything that they do. They don't have to take any responsibility for the things that they do. And again, it's an automatic thing in the mind that they do because their brains are wired in a way that is no longer normal like this. So they are not able to deal with normal people like you and I, along with the fact that they don't deal with us in normal ways like too. They also don't deal with other things. They're not normally empathic people like a lot of us are. They're very often attracted to people who are empaths like myself and other individuals who have an empathic nature. Narcissists are automatically attracted to this. They can sniff it out like a hunting dog, literally. And this is what they go for, as people who are empathic or empaths, or people who just have some type of very giving forward nature about themselves where they're very open. So this is what they do. This is what they do with people. They go after people who they can see as a target in these particular ways, and they don't really remember these things in the long run. And this is really the way the narcissist's mind works in this particular way. So this was the main thing I wanted to explain here in episode 2, was basically how the narcissist's brain is not wired the same as normal people are. I'm going to be continuing this in the following episode, which will be episode 3, Understanding the Narcissist's Mind, Part 2. And we'll be broaching some other topics in this next episode related to the same subject matter of how the narcissist thinks and how they deal with you in the confines of whatever relationship it is that you have with them. So I'd like you guys to stay tuned for part 2 of episode 2, and we'll be coming at you with that very shortly. Good evening.